Tonight, we're exploring what happens when you stop thinking. The sky outside your window might already be dark, a quiet sort of darkness, not heavy or ominous, but soft and slow, like velvet settling over the shape of the day. You don't need to move. You're already exactly where you need to be. There's nothing left to solve tonight. No more choices, no more lists, no more whirring circuits of plans and possibilities. Just you. And the space that opens up when thinking gently slips away. It starts with stillness. Not the absence of sound, but something stranger. The moment when your attention is no longer chasing after anything. Maybe you felt it before, accidentally, right before sleep, or during a long stare out a window. That almost eerie hush, like your mind just forgot to narrate. You probably won't survive this world unchanged, but that's the point. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you enjoy quiet stories like this. And if you're still awake, let us know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie in bed, not asleep, not thinking, just there. It's strange how unfamiliar that feels, just existing without anything to do about it. No idea to grab, no memory to poke, no urge to label the feeling in your chest. You don't even name it calm. It just is. This moment, this is the tiniest space that opens up when you stop thinking. And it doesn't last long, because just as you notice it, a thought returns. What was that? Am I doing it right? Is this what it means to stop thinking? But it's okay. That's how it always goes. The noticing is also a kind of thought, and the mind can't help but peek in. Even when you think you've stopped thinking, your brain hasn't. Not entirely. Inside your skull, there are roughly 86 billion neurons, whispering to each other in the language of electricity and chemistry. They don't pause when you do. Even in deep sleep, or the most meditative trance, something inside is still flickering. Researchers have found that the brain's default mode network, a web of activity that lights up when you're not focused on the outside world, keeps humming along when you're at rest. It activates when your mind wanders, when you remember the past or imagine the future. Even when you lie still with your eyes closed, trying to quiet your thoughts, it's there, gently, stubbornly active. It's like background music you can never quite turn off. The eerie thing? This network is so persistent that in some comas, it's still detectable. As if even the unconscious mind keeps a kind of low fire going in case it needs to return. So when you lie there and think, I've stopped thinking, it might just mean you've stopped thinking in words. But underneath, the currents are still moving. You might picture your mind as a snow globe, every worry, plan, regret like tiny flakes always swirling, and every once in a while you set the globe down. The flakes begin to fall. One by one, they drift to the bottom. And for a second, just before the next shake, the whole world inside goes still. That stillness is fragile. In ancient Buddhist texts, there's a term, chittavritti nirodha, the cessation of the mind's fluctuations. Not stopping thought by force, but allowing it to settle like silt in clear water. Some monks spend decades chasing that clarity. But you don't have to. You can feel the edges of it right now, in the moment after a breath out or in the pause between heartbeats. Small, overlooked silences. They hide in your daily life, beneath the noise of everything else. And then there's the eerie truth. You might not even notice when the thinking does stop. Have you ever caught yourself staring at nothing, eyes open, but your mind completely blank? Not daydreaming, not remembering, not planning, just paused. You probably wouldn't remember how long it lasted, because the moment thinking returns, it overwrites the one that came before, like waking from a dream with only the last sentence intact. Scientists sometimes call this mind blanking, a temporary suspension of reportable thought. It happens more often than you'd expect, especially during fatigue or repetitive tasks. And the brainwaves associated with it, surprisingly close to those seen during light sleep. But here's what no one can quite explain. What is the mind doing during that blankness? Is it resting, resetting, reorganizing, or is it aware in a different way? Some mystics suggest that true awareness begins when thought ends. That thinking is a layer between you and the present, helpful, sure, but also a filter. When thought quiets, you don't vanish, you remain, just quieter. You might notice your breath in a new way, not as your breath, not something you do, but something that simply is, like wind or weather, existing without needing your attention. You might hear the distant sounds outside your window, not as distractions, but as part of this stillness. The hum of a refrigerator, the rustle of a tree, the low sigh of plumbing in the wall. None of it needs naming. None of it needs explaining. And maybe you don't either. That's what it feels like in the moment before thought, not gone, just irrelevant. A suspension, a weightlessness. You don't have to chase it, just stay here. Don't worry if your mind returns, it always does. But sometimes it doesn't return all the way. Sometimes it lingers, right at the edge of the hush. The machinery of a restless mind is subtle. Even when you believe you found stillness, when your eyes are closed, your body is quiet, and your breath flows in and out like waves on a midnight shore, there's something deeper ticking along beneath the surface. Something old, something patterned. You can almost feel it if you listen carefully. Not with your ears, but with that quiet noticing that doesn't need sound. It's strange how much of your inner world keeps moving without permission. There's a term neuroscientists use, the default mode network, or DMN. It was discovered almost by accident. During early brain scans, researchers noticed something peculiar. The brain didn't go quiet when someone rested. In fact, in moments of rest, when people weren't solving problems, answering questions, or performing tasks, a specific set of brain regions lit up. As though, left to its own devices, the mind prefers to keep itself busy. This default network, weaving through your medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and angular gyrus, is believed to be the source of much of your inner life. Daydreams, self-reflection, planning, and remembering. When you're not paying attention to the outside world, the DMN fills in the silence with you. But it's a restless you, a layered you. You reflect on past embarrassments, imagine future conversations, rehearse versions of yourself. You think about what others think about you, and how you might think about that. It loops, it echoes, it reaches into empty space and pulls up imagined scenarios like threads from a loom. It weaves a person, you, yet it doesn't feel like you built this machine. It runs on its own, automatically, silently. And even now, as you listen, as you lie still, there's a good chance it's humming beneath your awareness, spinning memories, projections, judgments, names. But if you sit with it long enough, if you don't feed it, something begins to shift. You may start to feel like a stranger in your own mind. That's not a bad thing. It's just unfamiliar. It's like noticing that the voice in your head, the one narrating everything, isn't you exactly. It's just a voice, like a radio station tuned in since birth, so constant that you stop noticing the signal. But what happens if you turn the volume down? Some people try to shut the voice off entirely. They go to monasteries. They fast for weeks. They sit for 10 hours a day, watching their breath like it holds the answer to the universe. Others just start by lying in the dark, like you are now. It doesn't matter how you begin. The machinery is the same, but your relationship to it can change. And that's where things get interesting. There's an eerie phenomenon observed during long periods of sensory deprivation. Float tanks, for instance, or deep meditation. As external stimuli fade and the mind quiets, people sometimes report a sense of watching thoughts arise from nowhere and dissolve just as quickly, like smoke from a candle that's already gone out. But more than that, they begin to feel the default mode network winding down. Not in a physical sense, but in the strangeness of time slowing, the self softening, the future evaporating. It's hard to describe. Language wasn't designed for this kind of experience, but many describe it as a kind of vastness. Not empty, not full, just wide. As if you're drifting backward into something older than thought, into the place where thought begins. One quietly fascinating fact: some researchers believe that deep meditation, or even trance states, may suppress the default mode network's activity altogether. In functional MRI studies, seasoned meditators show lower activity in the DMN, particularly in the midline structures associated with self-referential thinking. What's more, during those moments, the brain appears to reorganize itself around other networks, sensory regions, salience networks, awareness without the me. And it raises the question, if the voice of you goes quiet and thought slows down and memory steps back, who's noticing what's left? You don't have to answer that, not now. Not ever, really. Just let the question hang in the air like fog. It doesn't need a shape. What's eerie is how normal the noise of thought becomes. So normal that we mistake it for presence. We believe we're here, now, simply because we're narrating our experience. But narrating is not the same as being. You don't need words to witness, and you don't need to understand to feel. Some animals, whales, octopuses, even ravens, demonstrate complex problem solving, memory, even what appears to be emotion. But we don't know if they think in the way we do, with an inner narrator, with a constant stream of language-based reflection. And maybe they don't need to. Maybe thought is just one way to touch the world, and silence is another. A quiet moment, you feel your chest rise, then fall. A warm breath escapes your nose. A pause. No thoughts. Not yet. But also, not nothing. There's something here. A quiet presence. A space. Not blank. Not busy. Just waiting. There's a fleeting pause. A moment so brief it almost doesn't exist, that lives in the space between one thought and the next. You don't usually notice it. Why would you? Thoughts arrive so fast, like waves that don't wait for the last one to finish before the next one crashes through. But every so often, there's a gap, a breath of stillness. You're probably not even aware it's happened until it's already gone. Tonight, you begin to linger there. It's not dramatic. There's no grand silence. It's more like a hesitation. A soft blinking in your mind, where nothing is being said, no memory is being pulled, no opinion is being shaped. A brief window of silence. The Buddhists call these thought gaps. Small intervals where the stream of consciousness stops flowing and just hovers. And the strangest thing, they feel more restful than sleep. Because in sleep, your mind is still busy, dreaming, processing, replaying. But in those tiny gaps, it doesn't do anything at all, just rests. Some contemplative traditions treat these moments as precious, tiny awakenings. Noticing the silence is the practice. The pause is the point. It's hard to catch them at first. You might be meditating or staring at the sky or brushing your teeth, and suddenly realize that for the past few seconds you weren't there in the usual way. No narrative, no internal voice, just an open kind of attention, like standing in a room that echoes, but no sound has been made. One quietly fascinating fact. In 2019, cognitive scientists using real-time brain imaging captured a phenomenon they called mind voids. These were spontaneous moments during wakefulness when measurable thought activity dropped dramatically for a few seconds, not tied to sleep, distraction, or meditation. Just natural silences, unprompted, unexplained. One researcher described it as the brain taking a spontaneous breath. But what causes it? No one knows. Maybe it's neurological. Maybe it's protective, the mind's way of resetting when overloaded. Or maybe, and this is where science stops and wonder begins, maybe it's something else entirely. You think about a candle's flame flickering. Not because the wind blew, but because something in the air changed ever so slightly, something invisible. Your thoughts are like that. Not always under your control, not always yours to summon or dismiss. They arise and vanish on their own schedule. And in between, silence. There's an eerie beauty in how fragile those moments are. They can't be summoned on command. Try to have a thought gap, and your very trying becomes another thought. The mind is funny like that. It folds in on itself. But here's a trick. Sometimes, instead of trying to stop thinking, you just listen. Not to anything in particular, not for meaning, just for space. Maybe you hear the distant hum of your building, the soft breath of someone else sleeping in the next room, a moth against the window. But you're not labeling these things, not interpreting, not telling yourself a story about what they are. You're just there. Listening, floating, and for a second, no thoughts come, no thoughts need to come. You start to realize that thinking isn't constant, even when it feels like it is. It flickers, it fades. Sometimes it forgets to speak up, and when it forgets, something else arrives in its place. It's not a blankness, it's a kind of openness, an awareness that doesn't reach, that doesn't name. Have you ever been in a room filled with people, but suddenly for just a second, everyone stops talking at once? That half second of silence, dense, fragile, unexpected. That's what it's like when your thoughts stop. Not empty, just wide. One eerie idea some philosophers have explored is this. What if these gaps in thought, however brief, are closer to your true self than the thoughts themselves? What if who you are isn't the voice, but the silence underneath? Not everyone agrees. Some say there is no you in the silence. Others say there is only you there. It's an old debate. But tonight, you don't need to pick a side. You're just listening, feeling your mind settle. A tiny silence opens up again. It could be the space between words or the blink between two ideas. You don't try to hold it. You let it pass through you like wind. And for a moment, you feel as though the world has paused with you. Not asleep, not gone, just still. You don't stop thinking by force. That's something people often misunderstand, as if the mind is a muscle you can clench into stillness. But thoughts aren't like that. They don't obey willpower. In fact, the more you chase silence, the more elusive it becomes. Trying to stop thinking is like trying to fall asleep. The effort pulls you further from the very thing you're trying to reach. Instead, you begin with noticing. You become aware of the shape of a thought as it forms, how it arises from nowhere, briefly takes form, and then dissolves into the next. Noticing slows things down. You don't have to react to every idea. You don't have to follow every image or memory. You just observe them as if they're passing clouds, not storms, not signs, just shapes. You sit with them gently. And in that softness, something starts to happen. The stream slows, not all at once and not forever, but a quiet begins to settle in the space between your noticing. Your breath becomes your anchor. You return to it not because it's special, but because it's always there. Quiet, repetitive, rhythmic, like a tide endlessly folding in on itself. You breathe in and thoughts stir. You breathe out and they begin to loosen. One quietly fascinating fact. Researchers studying meditative breathwork found that deep, conscious breathing can shift the brain's activity toward a slower, more synchronized pattern. Brainwaves begin to move into theta, the frequency linked to deep relaxation and early sleep. This isn't just metaphorical calm. It's measurable. The body responds. The mind softens. And into that softening, a stillness creeps in, one breath at a time. But it's not total silence. Not yet. It's more like the background volume has been turned down. The loudest thoughts have stepped aside, and what's left is gentler, softer, more curious than controlling. You begin to wonder where thoughts even come from. Do you create them, or do they arrive on their own? If you could stop thinking at will, wouldn't you already have done it by now? The eerie thing is this. You can't think your way out of thought. You can't reason your way into silence. But you can lean away. You can sit at the edge of your mind like a quiet observer, watching the mechanisms without interfering. Noticing how even boredom is a kind of thought. Even the urge to succeed, to do nothing well, is just the ego in another costume. Eventually, something deeper gives way. You stop trying to control what appears. You stop fighting the rhythm of your mind. And then, for a little while, you forget to think. Not because you're gone, but because you're so present that thought becomes unnecessary. It's not absence. It's not dullness. It's more like the moment just after rain, when the air is so still you can hear leaves dripping from 2 streets away. There's a depth in that quiet, a clarity. In some Eastern traditions, this is the beginning of samadhi, the meditative absorption where the sense of separation between self and moment disappears. It doesn't need a label. You don't even need to understand it. You're just here now. No longer chasing silence, no longer fleeing thought, just being. And when a thought does arrive, as it always does, you greet it like an old friend. No resistance, no grasping. It's just passing through. There's an eerie peace in that, not needing to control the flow, not even needing to swim, just letting yourself float. Imagine your thoughts as leaves on a slow-moving river. You don't have to pick them up. You don't have to read them or name them. You don't even have to know where they're going. You just watch. The water keeps flowing, but you're no longer caught in the current. Another moment of quiet arrives. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wait for permission. It just comes, like a fog rolling in without wind. Soft, slow, complete. And again, you notice, not with words, but with stillness. One eerie observation from longtime meditation practitioners: the more you practice sitting in silence, the more you begin to feel like you are not the thoughts, not even the ones that feel most important. Instead, you're the space they pass through, the canvas, not the paint. And that space, the part that simply watches, has no story, no urgency, no fear, just presence. So tonight, you don't have to stop thinking. You just have to notice, breathe, listen, and lean back. The silence will find you. You begin to sense something strange. The mind can watch itself. It's subtle at first. You don't even notice it happening. One moment, you're lost in thought. The next, you're aware that you're thinking. That shift from being inside the thought to noticing the thought is quiet but powerful. It's like waking up mid-dream, not quite leaving it behind, but now watching it play out from just an inch away. That inch is everything. This is the realm of metacognition, the mind's ability to observe its own processes. You can reflect on your feelings. You can question your reasoning. You can sit in silence and suddenly catch yourself wondering, why do I keep thinking about this? And in that noticing, something loosens. Because once you observe a thought as a thing, not as truth, not as command, not as self, it starts to lose its grip. It becomes just another ripple, another flicker of electricity passing through your neural web. Not you, just a pattern. One quietly fascinating fact. Studies using fMRI scans have shown that people who regularly practice mindfulness or self-inquiry have stronger connections in the anterior prefrontal cortex, the area associated with metacognitive awareness. It's the part of the brain that lets you watch yourself watch. And the more you build that skill, the easier it becomes to sit at a gentle distance from your own thinking. To not chase every thought like a dog chasing cars. To just watch and let go. At first, this feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into yourself. Thoughts swirl below, loud and full of urgency, but you don't have to leap into them. You can just stay where you are, breathing, observing, letting the storm pass. It's eerie sometimes, realizing how many of your thoughts run on habit. Old stories, old patterns, worn loops your mind returns to out of reflex. And when you notice the loop, the pattern starts to break. Not by force, just by being seen. Like shadows dissolving when you turn on a light. You might even notice how some thoughts try to disguise themselves. They whisper in your voice. They wear the clothes of urgency or truth. They say things like, "You should be doing more. This is important. Don't let this go." But now you're listening differently. You're not reacting. You're just watching them float up and fall away. And as that distance grows, something opens in the space between you and the thought. Not a wall, not a void, a gentle awareness. Like a candle flame that doesn't burn, only glows. This is where the silence begins to stretch out, not because you've forced the mind to stop, but because you've given it nothing to resist. No fuel, no attention, just witnessing. You start to feel what some call open presence, a state where you're aware, but not grasping. Attentive, but not focused on any one thing. Thoughts may come, but they don't land. They pass through like wind through open fingers. And you remain, soft, unmoving, watching. One eerie but beautiful idea from Tibetan Dzogchen meditation. That awareness is like a mirror. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, they all arise as reflections. But the mirror itself is untouched. It holds everything. It clings to nothing. And the more you rest in that mirror-like space, the less thinking needs to happen. Not because you've suppressed it, but because there's nothing for it to solve. You're not searching for answers. You're not rehearsing futures. You're not correcting the past. You're just here. And what a strange relief that is. Have you ever been in a room with someone you trust completely, and neither of you speaks, but the silence is full? That's what it feels like inside. A mind that watches itself doesn't rush to fill the silence. It honors it. Sometimes a thought will still tug at you. A memory, a worry, a flicker of what you forgot to do. And that's okay. You don't fight it. You don't scold yourself. You notice it and smile. As if to say, there you are again. That's fine. Stay if you like. And often it leaves on its own. You return to your breath, to the soft rise and fall of your chest, to the dark warmth behind your eyelids, to the gentle stillness that now seems to stretch a little longer between thoughts. You're not trying to stop thinking anymore. You're just noticing the space that appears when you do. And the more you notice it, the more it notices you. You're still here. Your body is quiet. Your breath has found its rhythm. And your thoughts are beginning to slow. Not because you forced them, not because you told your mind to be quiet, but because it's simply getting tired of listening to itself. You begin to notice something strange, something you don't often catch while you're awake. There is a voice in your mind, and it's always talking. It plans what you'll do tomorrow. It replays what you said to someone 2 weeks ago. It imagines arguments that never happened. It tries to solve problems that don't exist yet. This voice wears your tone, your habits, your anxieties. But is it truly you? It's like a narrator that never pauses, a commentator who won't give the game a break, a foghorn in the distance, always sounding, just in case you've forgotten it's there. And then, as you lie in this stillness, this voice starts to drift. Not in fear, not in protest, but like steam fading from a cup of tea, a gentle retreat into silence. At first, it's unsettling, like losing your internal compass. You reach for a thought, but it slithers away before you can grab it. You reach for a worry, but it collapses into mist. You expect the next sentence to rise in your mind, but there's just space. And for a moment, you wonder if something is wrong. Where is your mind? Why isn't it working? But then a deeper calm arrives. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't give you a reason. It just says, nothing. And in that nothing, you begin to feel more real than ever. The inner voice, the one you've identified with all your life, was never you. It was just the sound of gears turning, the rattling of the machine. Useful, yes, but not essential, not always. It's strange, isn't it? To realize how much of your waking life is spent talking to yourself, rehearsing, remembering, worrying, explaining, justifying. The mind spins like a carousel that never stops turning, and each thought you ride feels urgent, important, undeniable. But now the carousel is slowing, not stopping entirely, no, but softening. Its music is muffled by the fog, its horses fade into shadow, and you step off, not in panic, but with a kind of relief, like taking off a heavy coat after a long, cold walk. Beneath the thinking voice, you find something quieter. It doesn't speak. It doesn't argue. It doesn't even try to explain. It just watches, feels, receives. You become aware of your hands again, the softness of the blanket, the rhythm of your chest. But these sensations are different now. You're not labeling them. You're not thinking, this is warm or this is comfort. You are simply being with them, letting them move through you like waves on a still lake. This is where perception becomes softer, where you no longer have to name what you feel, where the self that needs to comment goes quiet. And in that quiet, you begin to remember something ancient, a version of you that existed long before the voice started narrating, before the world taught you language, before thoughts crowded your sky. You remember being a child, lying on the floor, watching dust dance in a sunbeam, lost in wonder with no words at all. That part of you is still here. It never left. It just got buried beneath thoughts, beneath tasks, beneath time. And now, with each breath, with each letting go, you return to it. Slowly, sweetly, without trying. The fog continues to roll in, gentle and kind. It doesn't erase you. It reveals you. It shows you that you are not your thoughts. You are not your planning. You are not your productivity. You are the space beneath the noise, The silence holding the sound, the pause between two breaths. And in this fog, in this silence, you find a kind of clarity that thinking could never provide. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to name it. Just let it happen. Let the voice fade, let the fog rise, and just be here. So here you are, in the silence that remains after the voice of thought has wandered off into the fog. But you are not asleep. Not yet. You are floating in a strange space, half submerged in stillness, half aware of the world. Your body is no longer sharply outlined in your awareness. The weight of your limbs fades. The shape of your chest, your legs, your hands, they're still there, but only softly. And you begin to see things differently. Not with your eyes, but with something slower, something older. As if perception has changed its form. No longer a spotlight, but a soft, diffuse glow, like moonlight filtered through clouds. Colors don't shout anymore. They whisper. Sounds lose their sharp edges. They become rounded, warm, like water lapping against an unseen shore. Your senses are still working, but they are no longer working for thought. They are no longer scanning for danger, for goals, for judgments. Now they simply exist. They observe, not to define, but to feel. And in this state, time becomes strange. It stretches, it loops, it forgets itself. Moments no longer march forward in a line. They bloom like petals, opening slowly in all directions. You remember something from childhood. A scent, grass after rain. A moment, your hand on a windowsill, watching wind move curtains. It's not a memory exactly. It's more like a ghost of a moment that never needed to be remembered until now. And it doesn't matter whether it really happened. What matters is the softness of it, the feeling it leaves behind, like the echo of a bell long after it has stopped ringing. Here, in this dreamlike state, perception becomes permission. Permission to feel without explanation, to notice without naming, to simply be without proving that you are. You might think this is where dreams begin, but it's not. Not yet. Dreams still require a kind of structure, a kind of unconscious storytelling. You're not there yet. You are in the hallway before the dream, a corridor with velvet walls lit by dim amber light. And in this corridor, you walk not with your feet, but with your attention. You are weightless, not flying, not falling, just floating, as if gravity has remembered that it doesn't need to hold you down all the time. What happens now is not seen, but felt. A shift in texture, a softening of the edges between you and not you. Your boundaries blur. The curtain between the self and the world becomes thin, porous, transparent. You are still you, but the definition of you is expanding, stretching beyond skin, beyond memory, beyond language. And here's something strange. When you stop thinking, you don't become less. You don't lose yourself. You become more connected, more fluid, more free. You become a part of the scene, not just its observer. You are no longer watching the world through a window. You are the wind through the trees, the coolness of the air, the hush of evening. And all of this happens without a single thought. The brain is still active, but in a different rhythm. It has left behind the quick sparks of language and entered the slow waves of feeling, of being, of becoming. This is not forgetting. This is remembering something older than words, something your nervous system has known for millions of years. The art of soft perception, the peace that lives beneath the voice, the gentle hum of being alive with no story to tell, no plot, no goal, just this long, slow exhale into the gentle drift between thought and dream. And so you float, barely aware of how quiet it's become, because the quiet doesn't feel like absence. It feels like home. You are still here, still lying, still breathing, but something has shifted. The voice in your head, the constant companion, has gone quiet now. There's no argument, no commentary, no monologue rehearsing tomorrow or reliving yesterday. It is as if your thoughts have packed their bags and gone on holiday without saying goodbye. And strangely, you don't miss them. Instead, you notice something else. At first, it's so subtle, you think it might be nothing. But then you realize it's everything. The texture of the sheets beneath your fingertips, the faint vibration of your own heartbeat inside your chest, the almost imperceptible wave air as it settles onto your skin. No thought announces these sensations. No mental narrator describes them. They simply arrive, and you simply notice. This noticing is not thinking. It's not judging, labeling, or explaining. It is softer than that, more ancient, more raw. It's as if your awareness has walked to the edge of the forest, where thought ends and instinct begins. And at the border, there is only stillness. Here, your perception becomes porous, less like a flashlight, more like a fog. It doesn't target one thing, it wraps around everything. It doesn't focus, it feels. The ceiling fan above you becomes a soft, swirling presence. The fabric of your blanket becomes a field of warmth. The spaces between your fingers, they hum with quiet electricity. This is the edge of where you stop being a thinker and start being something else. But what are you without the voice, without the thoughts? Are you still you, or are you something older than thought? A witness that was always watching, even before language arrived? It's strange, isn't it? You've lived your whole life in conversation with yourself. But now, without that conversation, you're not empty. You're full. Full of texture. Full of breath. Full of the quiet pulse of existence itself. And then, a flicker. A thought tries to return, like a bird tapping at the window. It says, "This is boring," or "Why are we doing this?" or even, "I think I'm doing it wrong." But you smile because you see it now. That is just the mind trying to stay in charge, trying to narrate your stillness. But you don't need a narrator. You are already in the scene. So you don't push the thought away. You let it float by. Like a leaf on a river. You watch it, and then it's gone. And you return. Not to thinking, but to sensing. You feel the way your chest rises and falls, not as a concept, but as an ocean swell. You feel the weight of your body on the bed, like a boat resting on still water. You feel how vast the space is, not the room around you, but the space within you. There is so much room, room for stillness, room for not knowing, room for simply being. And then in this state, something else stirs. Not a thought, not an image, but a kind of knowing. A quiet awareness that everything is okay. Even the things that aren't okay are somehow held inside a bigger okayness. This knowing doesn't speak in words. It doesn't need to. It's more like a song you remember but haven't heard in years. You don't know the lyrics, but you feel the melody. And in that melody, you realize the edges of your awareness have no edge at all. They stretch, they dissolve. They blend with the dark around you and the quiet within you. You become aware of awareness itself, not as something you do, but as something you are. And it's here, in this silent, boundless presence, that you understand. Stopping thought doesn't mean disappearing. It means returning to the soft hum beneath your mind, the place you began, the place you always are. You remain there, still, quiet, complete. No need to go anywhere. No need to become anything. Just this, just now. Just the edge that leads into everything. There's something beneath all of it, beneath the swirling fog of images, beneath the gentle wash of sensations, beneath the subtle tension in your face, the weight of your limbs, and even beneath the rhythm of your breath. There is a force. It's quiet but constant, like gravity. Not the gravity that pulls you to the earth, not the one that tethers you to your bed right now, though it does that too. No, this is a different kind of gravity, a psychic gravity, a gravity of presence. It is what holds your sense of self together. It is what lets you remain you, even when your thoughts have drifted far away. Without it, your identity would scatter, like pages torn from a book and thrown into the wind. You don't usually notice this force because it doesn't speak, it doesn't move, it doesn't interrupt. It's just always there, quietly, holding, allowing your experiences to cohere, to mean something, to form patterns that feel like memory and intention and understanding. But now, as you drift even deeper, as thoughts slow to a near halt, you begin to feel it. Not as a sensation, but as an anchoring, a weight without pressure, a warmth without heat. There's a depth here, a deep well inside you, not in the body, but behind it somehow, like standing in the middle of a calm lake and realizing it's bottomless. And it's not scary. It's still, it's safe. It's something you've always carried with you. You realize this gravity is the reason you can return. Return from sleep, from dreams, from episodes of forgetfulness, from states of overwhelm. It's the center of your awareness, the place where all paths lead back to. Some call it the soul, others call it consciousness or presence or the witness. But those are just names. It is not asking to be named. It is simply being, and right now, it is holding you as you float on the quiet sea of your mind. Your thoughts may flicker now and then. A stray memory, a random image, a feeling without a story. But they pass, like tiny ripples across a dark lake. They do not disturb the depth. They cannot reach the bottom. And you feel safe, as if the part of you that needs to do and solve and push has been gently invited to rest. Not shut down, not defeated, just released. This gravity knows when to let go and when to hold on. So you drift, not upward, not downward, just inward. Every breath draws you closer to the still point beneath all motion, to the unmoving center beneath the dance of perception. You are not trying to get anywhere. You are not trying to understand. You are simply resting in what already understands. And in this stillness, you feel not empty, but whole, not blank, but aware, as if there is a light inside you that doesn't need to shine outward. It just glows, softly, from within. You are not the thoughts that pass. You are the field they pass through. And that field is vast and gentle and here. The future is a strange place. It doesn't exist. Not really. And yet it calls to you constantly. In every plan, every worry, every deadline, every daydream, you spend your life walking toward it, measuring its shape, predicting its weather, imagining the person you'll become when you finally get there. But tonight, as you lie here in the deep quiet of this hour, you begin to see it differently. The future, that glittering projection on the wall of your mind, begins to soften. Its edges blur, its urgency fades, because when you stop thinking, the clock stops ticking. And without the ticking, what is time, really? It becomes warm space, stretching in all directions, no pressure, no appointments, no expectations, just now. And in this now, you find something rare. You are no longer becoming, you are only being. You don't need to become a better version of yourself. You don't need to prepare for tomorrow. You don't need to run simulations in your head about conversations that haven't happened, or problems that haven't arisen, or endings that haven't even begun. You lie here, and the what-ifs slowly dissolve, like clouds touched by sunlight, gone without needing to be pushed. The mind, so used to sprinting ahead, trips, slows, stumbles into stillness. You feel it, not in words, but in sensation, in the absence of mental noise, a soft spaciousness behind your forehead, a kind of emotional gravity letting you sink. No future, no past, only the velvet pause of now. And yet, you're not empty, you're not lost, you're not disconnected. In fact, you might be more you than ever. Because all the things that usually define you, your resume, your relationships, your routines, your regrets, your wishes, none of them are here in this moment. But you are. You, without the armor of narrative, without the scaffolding of memory, without the projections of who you think you need to be. Just breath, just body, just being. In this space, a gentle truth becomes visible. You don't have to build the future tonight. You don't have to fix yourself tonight. You don't have to do anything at all. You can rest fully, deliberately, like the stars that rest in the sky without trying to shine. You start to wonder, what if the future takes care of itself when you stop chasing it? What if this stillness isn't the absence of progress, but a deeper kind of movement, the movement of healing? The movement of alignment, the movement of becoming so deeply present that you finally feel whole. And in that wholeness, time has no grip on you. You are unhooked from the river, floating in the quiet pool beneath all rushing things. This is where the future melts away, and in its place, a kind of gentle eternity. Not forever, but full. A moment large enough to hold everything you are and everything you are not. You breathe in, not for survival, but for communion. With the stillness, with the space, with the miracle of not needing to think to feel real. You don't have to try to stay here. You're already here. And you'll return again and again every time you remember that thinking is not the only way to be. There is also this silence, this warmth, this truth. You are not a thought. You are the awareness behind the thought. And that awareness, it never needs to think to be alive. The world has quieted now, inside you and all around. The forest of your mind, once tangled with the vines of constant thought, now stands still. Even the wind seems to have paused. It is not silence, but a different kind of sound. One that doesn't come from your ears, but from somewhere far more ancient. You rest in this space as if floating just beneath the surface of a still pond, and every movement, every ripple of sensation feels slower, more meaningful. In this stillness, you begin to sense something strange, not a thought, but an awareness of awareness. What does that mean? It's not something your mind can grasp like a concept. It's like trying to hold water in your hand. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. Instead, you let go. And in that letting go, you become the water. You are no longer watching the surface. You are the surface. You are the mirror. Everything reflects in you now. The faint flutter of your breath, the warmth in your palms, a distant memory that no longer carries weight, a feeling that comes, says nothing, and leaves. And for the first time in a very long time, you do not chase anything. You do not argue with what arises. You do not need to shape the moment, because you are the moment. There is no desire here, no project to finish, no identity to polish, no opinions to defend, just a soft field of presence, like moonlight spread across a sleeping meadow. And now, something even deeper reveals itself. The realization that this stillness isn't new. It has always been with you. But it waited for you to stop believing every thought that passed through. And now, with no need to resist or explain, you are face to face with the quiet intelligence that underlies everything. This intelligence doesn't speak in words. It shows itself in feeling, in knowing, in being. It doesn't argue. It doesn't shout. It doesn't even care whether you notice it, because it is always there, quietly holding the space beneath every moment of your life. Now you begin to understand something truly strange. Thinking was never the enemy. It was just one song in the orchestra, useful sometimes, distracting, often, but not who you are. You are not the thinker. You are not even the thoughts. You are what remains when the thoughts grow quiet. You are the mirror. Not a mirror that reflects the chaos of the mind, but one that reflects light itself, pure, clear, still. And like a mirror, you don't do anything. You simply are. Even that sentence, you simply are. You don't need it. But language is the only thread we have, so we follow it gently, even as it frays in our hands. A moment passes, or maybe many. It's hard to tell now. You are still lying there, breathing, not asleep, not awake in the usual sense, but floating in a third state, a sacred in-between. And in this space, something soft arrives, not a thought, but an impulse, an invitation. It doesn't ask you to do anything. It only says, stay here a while. Be the mirror. Let the world reflect. Let the clouds drift. Let the winds pass. And when the time comes, you'll know how to rise again. Not because the voice tells you to, but because the stillness itself will begin to move. You'll carry this silence with you, not as an escape from the world, but as a way of moving through it softly, gently, awake. And until then, stay. You may not have noticed it at first. The subtle shift, the gentle descent, as if your thoughts, once sharp and chattering, had become heavy. Not in a burdensome way, but in the way mist becomes dew, and dew becomes water, and water finally becomes still. You're not sinking, you're settling, like dust in a sunbeam, like snow in a globe that's been set down, like a mind that's no longer trying. It begins with silence, a silence that doesn't ask anything from you. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't even wait for you to notice it. It simply is. And when you do notice it, when you hear the hum beneath all the other sounds, you realize this is not emptiness. This is the foundation, the gravity beneath the mind. It's always been here, holding everything together, patient, unmoved. You wonder what lives in this gravity, what forms of knowing might dwell there, where words no longer reach. There are no thoughts here, no questions to answer, no answers to question. And yet, you do not feel lost, only lighter. Maybe this is the real mind, not the thinking one, but the aware one, the one that listens without needing to reply, the one that witnesses without controlling. You're not trying to understand anything anymore. You're letting understanding come to you, like fog curling over hills, like sleep drifting through open windows. Everything slows. Even time begins to hesitate. Seconds melt into one another like candle wax. There's no clock to obey now, no pace to match. And yet, you are not disconnected. Quite the opposite. You are more in your body than you've ever been. You feel your weight against the bed. You feel the air pass through your nose, cool on the inhale, warm on the exhale. You feel your chest rise and fall, like the slow tide beneath a full moon. This is not meditation, not in the way you once thought of it. This is not a technique, not a trick, not a tool. This is simply being, not doing, not improving, not fixing, just being. You're beginning to notice something strange. The boundary between your mind and the world is dissolving. Where do you end and the night begin? Where does the breath become air? Where do the sounds of the distant world, the creak of walls, the rustle of leaves, the sigh of the wind, blend into your perception until they no longer feel outside you? Could it be that in the absence of thought, you are no longer a separate entity? Could it be that you are not in the universe, but of it? Not a character in a dream, but the dreamer itself. As this thought, or whatever faint echo of thought it is, flickers and fades, you don't chase it. You let it vanish, like mist drawn back by the sun. You are not resisting anything, not even the act of thinking. You're simply not engaging. And as a result, your mind is quiet. Not empty, but quiet, like a forest after rain. Full of life, but resting. You feel the deep rhythm of existence beneath you, the heartbeat of the earth, the slow breath of the stars, all of it moving, but never in a rush. And somewhere in that rhythm, you find yourself. Not the you with a name, not the you with goals and fears, not the thinker, not the voice, but the one who has always been watching, even when you weren't looking. This watcher doesn't need to analyze. It doesn't need to know what comes next. It is content to drift, to float on the sea of quiet. Perhaps this is what sleep has been waiting for. Not for you to grow tired, but for you to let go, to step out of the mental machinery and into the open field beyond it. To remember what it feels like to simply be aware without needing to make sense of it all. It's here, in this slow, lucid state, that you finally understand. Stopping thought is not shutting off the mind. It is revealing the mind beneath the noise, the one that never left, the one that never changed, the one that does not need to think in order to know. And now you rest there, gently, like a feather on water, like gravity holding you without effort. You have nothing left to do, nowhere left to go, no one left to be. You are already home. You're still here. The breath still flows. The rhythm of your chest rising and falling remains uninterrupted. But something subtle has shifted. There's no longer a center, no longer a voice narrating, no longer an I orchestrating the thoughts. And yet, there's presence, a kind of awareness. It doesn't analyze, doesn't label, doesn't chase or cling. It simply is. It watches, but not like a pair of eyes. It's not looking. It's just there, like a mountain witnessing clouds drift by. Even the idea of witness feels too heavy, because that suggests someone is doing the watching. But now, even that someone has dissolved, like sugar in warm water. Sweetness remains, but the shape is gone. You're not observing anymore. You're not the observer. There is just observing. Thoughts may still come, little flickers, shadows, but they float in and out like birds crossing an open sky, never nesting, never staying. And when they fade, what's left? A field, not of grass or stars or dreams, but of being, not doing, not planning, not remembering, just being. There's no striving here, no tension, no effort to stay present, because there's no one left to make the effort. And still, it's all alive. The stillness breathes, the silence sings, and there's no one clapping at the end of the performance. Because this isn't a show, it's the fabric of reality, seen without eyes, felt without hands, known without thinking. Imagine a candle, burning in the dark, but without flame. Only warmth remains. You don't need to know what it means. You don't need to hold it in your mind. It's not a truth to remember. It's a state to fall into. This place where watching happens without a watcher, where life moves without being pushed, where thought may come, but thinking no longer owns you. You're floating now. Not on water, not in air, but in awareness itself. And awareness doesn't belong to anyone. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't need to be explained. It just is. And so are you. There was once a line between inside and outside, between you and the world, between the sound and the listener, between breath and the one who breathes. But now that line is blurry. Not gone, but soft, like chalk in the rain. You begin to notice that the edges of things aren't so rigid. The air, for example, isn't separate from your skin. It curls around you like a second body, but sometimes you wonder if it's just one body now. The thought arises, where do you stop? And the world begin? The answer doesn't come, because maybe there isn't one, and maybe that's okay. Let's stay there for a moment, not trying to define, but to feel. The wind, if it moves, moves through you. The sounds outside aren't outside anymore. They ripple inward, not just to your ears, but to some nameless field of awareness that doesn't end at the surface of your skin. What if your body was never a boundary? What if it's a doorway? What if your senses don't separate you from the world, but merge you with it? There's a kind of logic here, but not the kind you learned in school. It's a deeper knowing, a logic of rivers and roots, of birdsong and moonlight, of dreams that don't need explanation. The thought comes again. You are not in the world. You are the world. Not as a metaphor, but as an unfolding, an expression, a wave in the ocean of what is. The wave never leaves the ocean. Even when it rises, even when it crashes, even when it disappears. And so it is with you. You are rising and falling, appearing and vanishing, in this moment, and the next, and the next. But nothing is ever really lost. Just changed. Just reformed. Just moved. The boundary between you and time grows thinner too. You no longer feel the need to measure it. There's no clock here. No deadlines. No urgency. Only now, and now again and again. It feels safe, this collapse, like a wall falling, but revealing a garden behind it, a secret place that was always there. You just forgot to look. You remember the stars, how their light took thousands of years to reach your eyes. And yet, when you look up, they feel close, as if they never left. What if nothing ever leaves? What if everything that ever was still is, just in another form? Like thought turning into feeling, feeling into silence, silence into stillness, and stillness into sleep. Yes, this is what the boundaries were hiding. Not separation, but union. Not isolation, but return. The return to a self that isn't a self, to a space that holds everything and demands nothing. Here in this collapse of lines and labels, you find freedom. Not the kind you chase, but the kind that arrives when you finally stop chasing. You're not gone. You're not lost. You've simply softened. Like the light before sunrise, like breath before sleep, like thought before dreaming. There is no effort here, no goal, no final step to take, because you're already home, and this home has no walls, no ceiling, no door to knock on. It opens the moment you let go. So breathe and feel the soft edges of everything. Let the boundaries melt, let the lines disappear, and let yourself be held by the vastness that you've been all along. There is a place beyond thinking. You are very close now. You don't need to reach it. You're already inside it. There are no steps left to take, no answers left to seek, no edges left to smooth, no names to remember, no words to form, just air, moving in and out, softly, slowly. The world no longer feels like something outside you. It feels with you, as if your breath stirs the leaves, as if your heart keeps the stars turning, as if your stillness is not absence, but presence in its rawest form. There are no boundaries here, only warmth, weightlessness, a feeling that time is folding inward like silk, looping in slow, infinite circles. And in this place, something remarkable happens. You realize that thinking was only one layer, a beautiful, necessary, useful layer, but not the core, not the source. Because here, without thoughts, you are not diminished, you are not lost, you are not less of yourself, you are more. You are closer to yourself than ever. This is where the mind dissolves into being, where intellect bows to awareness, where memory gives way to timelessness. You are no longer a person remembering who they are. You are simply what is. The room around you is quiet. The body, light as vapor. The breath, deep but not controlled. And the mind, soft as fog, still as midnight. You may have noticed that you haven't been thinking for a while now. Not really. Not in the way you used to. No rehearsing, no planning, no loops. Just a gentle drift through images, sensations, impressions. And now even that is fading, like the moon slipping behind a cloud. Not gone, just quiet, at ease. You are not trying to fall asleep. You are not waiting for anything. You are not moving forward because there is nowhere else to go. You are here. You are whole. You are complete. You are. Nothing more needs to be said. Sleep.